On the eve of Women's Day, it's patently clear that there is still a substantial financial disparity between genders, and one of the issues is the gender gap in account ownership across developing economies. For more on this, we speak to Halala Gumede from SOLmate, a digital payment platform. A very good evening to you, Halala, and I must just say that it's quite ironic that we'd be having a conversation around women-centered issues with a man, but we appreciate the kind of positive change that you bring when it comes to the disparities between men and women. But what is the current situation with the gender gap in account ownership in South Africa?
Hi, Rafiwa. Thank you for having me on the show. Happy Women's Month to you and to all the wonderful women in South Africa. There's a huge disparity in terms of account ownership in developing countries, and in particular in South Africa when it comes to gender specifically. So there's quite a gap between men and women. And that is traditionally because also there's a trend in terms of, the structures of our economy and employment within South Africa and within the developing global context. And so, there's always been that gap for women. And I think it's one of those things that we really need to look into because we all know that women are quite pivotal when it comes to social cohesion and also just being able to provide for families. We know that there's a lot of single women-led families within South Africa. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that we need to look into as a country, and it's definitely something that we are proud to kind of be facilitating to try and close the gap from our side as a digital wallets service provider.
And tell us why we still see such a big gap, or why this conversation is still as significant as it is in 2023 when as you've just mentioned, women are running households, they're running businesses, they're community leaders. Shouldn't there be more of an effort just based on the work that you do from government and other related stakeholders to perhaps change policy that will give access to women, particularly with banks and bank accounts and the like? I mean, is it an issue that we're still hardwired that it is men that control finances in any situation?
I think there's a multiplicity of reasons there. One being we do live in a society where men are the predominant breadwinners in a household. And so that historic kind of fact plays into it. But also, I think if we look at the economy and women inclusion in the greater economy, there are less women obviously being active in the economy. And as a result of that, there's going to be that huge gap. There's going to be that disparity between men and women in terms of account ownership and the control of finance. Which can be very problematic, as we've kind of alluded to, because women are essentially the runners of households. If we think of just the past, where in Black families, fathers would leave their households, go to mines, work, and then come back, and mothers would be the ones running the household. They'd be the ones paying the school fees, taking kids to clinics and hospitals, etc. And the need is still there for women to have access to financial inclusion in the form of bank accounts, in the form of digital wallet accounts, etc., so that they can have access to finances and to money. To put it into context, if we think about services demand, the top 3 services demand, the first one is the ability to transfer money from point A to point B. It could be internally, or if you're a migrant worker, you might want to send money home. The other one is savings. People want to save money, obviously. And then the last one would be things like microloans for education, for healthcare. So imagine that you are living in rural Dundee in KwaZulu-Natal, and you're a woman looking after a household. the so-called breadwinner is in Gauteng digging gold or platinum, for them to have to send you money so that the kids can get to school, so that the kids can have food, so that the kids can get healthcare. They might need to give somebody that money.
And that is a very important point that you raised there, the access to financing when it's necessary. How do apps or platforms like yours then bridge that gap to making sure that women get access?
Yeah, so we provide digital wallets, and in our platforms, we, unlike the major banks, and not to slate the major banks, obviously they have a huge role to play, and they are, there's a definite gap there for non-banks or non-authorized dealers such as the big banks to play a role. And that's where we come in. We provide digital wallets so that people have got access to accounts, so that people have got access to the ability to transfer money from point A to point B, and also so that people can have cards so that they can transact. And there's also the safety aspect, where if you're sending money home and it's in cash, we know what the crime rate is like in South Africa. And women are very vulnerable to robberies. And so it's just, prudent that someone should have a digital wallet or digital facility where they can store their cash or their earnings and income.
Thank you very much for those insights, Halala. That is Halala Gumede from SOLmate, a digital payment platform. And one of the ways in which we're trying to bridge the gap between men and women when it comes to disparity around access to accounts and other ways or other financial institutions. Here's a